Hey everyone, and welcome to this Leeds Civic Trust podcast, where we chat with the people shaping our city. Today we're joined by Paul Mitchell from the Harris Partnership, the folks behind some of the standout developments popping up around Leeds. We'll hear about their work, what's coming next, and how good design can make a big difference. So, firstly, please could you give us a quick overview of the Harris Partnership and what your role is in the architectural landscape of Leeds and beyond?
Well, the Harris Partnership are a commercial architectural firm. Our headquarters is based in Wakefield. We have 7 other offices around the country, and we work in the industrial and retail sectors mainly, but also mixed-use developments and some high-rise residential.
So, what would you say kind of inspired the founding of the Harris Partnership? And how has your design philosophy evolved over the years?
Well, the Harris Partnership was set up by John Harris before my time, and it was based on some clients who were in the building and development sectors, and basically they asked him to set up doing commercial development work for them. I joined John when John got the first Aldi contract, and I came in with a specific idea of taking over the business in 1992, and that's when it started to grow into a bigger organisation.
What would you say kind of sets the Harris Partnership apart from other architectural practices in Leeds?
I think we are very, very commercial. We respond very quickly to clients' needs, which sets us a little bit apart, but also what we produce is usually accurate to what they actually demand as opposed to what the architect wants to produce. So we have a different attitude to the whole process, which attracts more clients and hence the growth of the business.
So you kind of putting people first.
Exactly, putting people first.
In terms of projects then, can you share with us some of sort of the standout ones, past or present, the best showcase of your design?
One of the more recent ones is the Springs at East Leeds, which is a mixed retail leisure scheme, which is actually going to include at a later date an industrial proposal for about 1 million square foot nearby. So we've instigated that. On top of that, we have done a retail and mixed-use development in Beverley called Flemingate, and another one in Northallerton called Treadmills, both mixed use, using listed buildings and a bit more sensitive than perhaps some of our other schemes. But we also do things like we act for Haribo, and we've been doing the Haribo development at Normanton over the last 10 to 15 years, and also lots of sheds around the country.
So the Springs development, is that near Thorpe Park? Is that the same?
Yes, that's next to Thorpe Park. It's got M&S and Odeon Cinemas and various other things, and it seems a big success for Leeds.
Yeah, and hopefully I think they're putting a train station there as well. That's proposed.
The idea, yes, and it assisted in the bypass being built around the northeast Leeds quadrant, which has opened up 5,000 houses at the same time. So it's been a game changer for Leeds, I think.
Have you ever worked with sort of like transport and sort of like looking at transport links? Is that ever looked at?
Part of it, yes. In fact, we've got involved in some bus interchanges as part of developments that we've been involved in. So we just finished one in Stockport, and we did one in South Shields as well. So we are verging on the edge of some transport work. But obviously some of these big strategic sites that we take on board involve quite a lot of work with transport engineers in terms of making them accessible to buses and all the vehicles that need to come.
Sustainability is becoming increasingly central to design. How is the Harris Partnership integrating green principles into your work?
In terms of landscape and biodiversity, we actually acquired a landscape firm 2 years ago called Smead and Foreman, who are based up in near Wetherby in Knaresborough, and we have about 16 staff there that have bought into the business, and they give us a bit more input into sustainable issues relative to landscape and biodiversity. The rest of it, you do need specialists, and we always work with specialists on anything like energy issues and that sort of thing. We don't profess to be all things to all people. We just know the right people to bring into projects.
So, emerging trends in architecture. What do you think will reshape the industry in the next decade?
I'm not sure at the moment. I think because of all the uncertainty with Trump and everything else that's going on in the world, I think it's a very difficult time to predict anything. I think it's going to be a time of change. Finances are going to get more difficult over the next couple of years, and people are going to have to be very careful about how they invest in projects and how they see the return on them.
It's unsteady ground,
Very
I suppose.
unstable at the moment.
So, I suppose in terms of the planning system, what's one thing you would change about it?
I think it needs a root and branch change. I don't think tinkering at the edges. Every government comes in and says we're going to streamline it, and every time they try that, it ends up another layer of bureaucracy and doesn't actually improve the situation. So I think it needs to go back to first principles. Perhaps the whole idea of the councillors fully involved in the planning process is incorrect, because we don't get the right answers out of projects, and often they get watered down and take far too long. By the time you get planning permission, the scheme is out of date and you virtually have to do it again. I'm talking large-scale schemes, one-off houses, that sort of thing is a different matter, but the schemes we deal with could be 1 million square foot or more, and those take a long time to process despite the planners. So we just don't want to be in a situation where we're tied down to policies that could be 5 years hence.
So, would you say that the post-COVID landscape has changed what clients want and what they're asking for?
It's changed the way we work, and it's changed the personal touch, which is a bit depressing, and everybody talks about it in terms of the fact that one-to-one meetings don't happen when they would actually make things happen a lot quicker. Teams meetings are all very good for reporting, but not very good for action. So I would hope that eventually more people start coming back to work and actually relating to each other again, because that's when things get done. And other opportunities come up. If you're in a room with a load of people, you talk about other things and you create more interest and more activity in the marketplace.
Yeah, so you're a bit more of an advocate of people being in the office?
We've always been in the office. Virtually from day one, people were demanding to come back to the office as soon as they possibly could. I worked all the way through in the office. I never stopped working in the office. I didn't want to do it at home. I'm not brilliant with technology anyway, so it's far easier for me to be sat at a desk, but then one or two other people would then start to come in and want to chat, and that's how things move forward. So, and it's also a better way of checking the quality of people's work. If you can look over people's shoulders and check what they're doing, or if they've got concerns, they can come and have a chat. You can't do that on Teams, so it doesn't really work not for architects, I don't think. Anyway, professions we work with, times have expanded out dramatically. Oh, I'm too busy on numerous team calls all day long is the sort of quote I get. They're booked back to back on Teams calls. They're not actually, the lawyers are not getting enough done because of that sort of situation. They're just back to back team calls. Probably sitting in the team call, not actually even watching what's going on, just doing some emails in the background. I've seen it regularly.
It's easier in person, more hands-on.
It is definitely, and that's been our success post-COVID as well.
I suppose you've kind of touched on this, I suppose, but how would you say recent economic shifts, kind of like inflation, interest rate changes, have influenced the way that clients are approaching projects?
They're limiting smaller clients to projects. Some of our larger clients, like Harwood Estates, British Land, Aldi, all have long-term programs. So they probably have more chance to continue with it. But as smaller developers need to get finance, and finance is somewhat difficult. It has been for a few years actually, but it's not getting any better this year.
You don't know what's coming around the corner, I suppose, economically at the moment. So kind of moving on to local engagement then. Do you collaborate with regional contractors, engineers or suppliers?
We prefer to work with regional contractors. Obviously, we've got other regions, so we have other regional contractors we work with, but people we like and people we get on with, where you can actually ring the managing director and say, we do have a problem here, and actually get it sorted. So and the same with our consultants. So we have a network of local consultants that we prefer to work with if we can.
I suppose, again, it's easier, closer to home, I suppose, closer to where you work.
It is, again, for the idea of having a face-to-face meeting and having a chat about problems, as opposed to entering into an email chain that all it does is point fingers at everybody.
So Leeds, how do you see it evolving as a place to live, work and design for?
Well, I'm hopeful that we are getting more residential in the town centre. I think it's a little bit based on student and professional flats too much, and maybe we should be thinking outside the box on that in terms of trying to get more peripheral family development occurring, looking at new types of family housing. You go abroad and you see that they can achieve it over there, but again, the finance isn't in position for that. The finance is all based on two-bed flats for two professionals sharing, and if not that, it's foreign students. So we're getting a glut of that type of accommodation, and I'm not sure it's going to be flexible enough to move forward with. But the more we can get people into town centres, the more town centres thrive. And at the moment, a lot of town centres aren't thriving enough. Car parking is extremely restricted. We're involved in a lot of out-of-town retail, and the reason it's a success is it's accessible, and cars can turn up, and you can do all your shopping and go back home. And if city centres don't change the way they think about them, they're going to die.
I suppose that's the Springs works because you've got it's accessible in terms of cars and
it's
yeah.
Cars, trains, buses, everything's there for them. It's free parking, so you can actually go there. You can go and see the cinema. You can go to a restaurant. City centres need to look at that and see what they can do to make their centres work.
Very much agree with Leeds kind of coming a bit of a student hotbed, and there's just no variation.
There is, yeah. I mean, I came to Leeds as a student. I've lived in Leeds all my life, as from student days onwards, and I love Leeds, and it's great for bars and that sort of thing, and students love it. But I'm not sure it's great for families anymore.
What was it like when you first came to Leeds then?
It was. I mean, city centre. There was a load of bars down back alleys, and the likes of White Locks and all those sort of old-fashioned pubs. There was a handful of restaurants in the city centre. It's changed dramatically since that was in the mid-70s, and it's changed quite a lot since then, and it's improved quite a lot. But and you forget how much it has improved from those days. The shopping was probably the Schofield Centre and Debenhams, and that was about it. And we've got a lot more on offer in Leeds, but we always have to be critical, don't we, and change it into something better.
Yeah, definitely guide it sort of in the right way for the next sort of 10, 15
I think we've got to look to the continent in terms of what you see in city centres. I've just come back from Rome, and the whole centre was bustling with people all day, all afternoon and all evening. All the bars and restaurants were full. it was a completely different atmosphere. We haven't got that. We haven't actually got many bars or restaurants you can sit outside in, as an example. Why aren't we doing something about that to create more public spaces in the centre that you can actually, on a sunny day like today, sit outside and have a drink and have a chat?
So, looking ahead, what exciting projects are on the horizon for the Harris Partnership that you can share with us?
We're involved in Bretton Hall, and there's supposed to be a major hotelier going into Bretton Hall, which is an interesting project. At the moment, we're doing a lot of logistics work in terms of larger sheds and things like that. And that seems to be the growth market at the moment. We've always been strong in that sector, but certainly at the moment we're doing a lot of that. Aldi is a big one to us. We've just opened Edinburgh office and we're doing the whole of Scotland now, so that might open opportunities in other areas in Scotland. We already work in Scotland a bit, but that could strengthen our grip on the North East and all of Scotland. So we'll be looking at those areas to expand our business a bit more.
Is there a bit of a difference between Scotland and England in terms of doing what you do?
Yeah, the regs are different in terms of you have to have a more developed design before you start on site, in terms of having building regs approval before you start on site. In England, you can get away without it. So there are stricter policies in Scotland, which does sometimes restrict schemes moving forward as fast. But I think England's catching up in some of the, certainly the residential sectors, the high-rise residential sectors. Now you have to do almost all the detail work before you let a contract. So that's become trickier anyway.
So in terms of the practice then, in the next 10 years, sort of where do you see it going, both in terms of scale and influence?
I'm not sure yet. We've done quite a lot this last 2 years. We've taken on a landscape firm with Edinburgh. I'm not sure what our next target is, possibly down the southwest, but we might look at something down there. I don't want the business to go too big. I think it's at the moment, because it's all a series of smaller offices, everybody feels involved in it, and we like to keep that with our staff, that they are all involved in some way in the business, in their own offices, or some people have roles across the business. But so I don't want it to suddenly become an international practice or anything like that. We're more opportunists, and we see an opportunity, we will go after it and add it into the mix if it fits, without destroying the ethos of the company.
In terms of where things are economically, you kind of go with that and take the opportunities that come that seem the best.
That's right, and that's going to be sustainable in the long term. We don't want to take on an opportunity that just dies off 2 years later, 3 years later. So everything we've done has been incremental growth over a 30-year period.
What first drew you to the world of architecture?
I've always been into art and a bit of history and maths, and those are the subjects that are actually quite good at a basis for being an architect. My father was an architectural technician, so I saw him draw a bit. So I've been wanting to do it since I was 10, 12 years old, something like that. So yeah, it's been a long-term strategy. My teachers told me I would never make it as an architect, so it's been an interesting ride since then, almost a challenge to show them that was not the case.
So I suppose lastly, to wrap everything up, what advice would you give to aspiring architects and designers now entering the profession?
Yeah, I was thinking about that because you gave me the advance warning. I think when you start off being an architect, it's all rose-tinted spectacles, and you think you're going to design the best building in the world. But you need to have a more rounded experience than just designing. I still design. I like design. I've always managed to delegate parts of the things I don't like, and so I can continue doing the bits I do like, which is dealing with clients and drawing buildings. But what I do recommend is that you get some sort of business experience, because architects are terrible businessmen. I'd like to think I'm not a terrible businessman. And get some training in finance, in the art of delegation, and then the art of communication as well. Those are the bits that will make you better than the general architectural field.